Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Often at the weekends I take a look at the deadly killer Sudoku from the Times, but today what I've got on screen is the Super Fiendish, the most recent Super Fiendish, which I think appeared on Thursday. And the reason I've got this puzzle up is that I wanted to talk a bit about why we use notation to solve Sudoku puzzles. A good friend of mine who's been watching the video said that he likes using the method that we recommend, but he's still not sure while he's solving why it's useful. So reminding you, what we recommend is that in each 3x3 box, if you manage to restrict a single number to just 2 positions within that 3x3 box, then you'd make little pencil marks to indicate that. So for example, in this 3x3 box here, if we look at ones, we could write a 1 in this position and this position to reflect the fact there's only 2 positions in this 3x3 box that a 1 can go. And we go about populating the grid with these little pencil marks, and we try to make deductions on the basis of just these pencil marks and progress towards a solution. Now, the alternative ways of doing this, I suppose there's 2 other obvious alternative ways. One of them would be to populate the grid with all of the open cells, with all of the possibilities that remain. So what I've done here is I've loaded up into some software that I have this same puzzle, and if I click solve here, you can see instantly all of the possible solutions for each particular cell are identified. And of course one could go through the grid now using, once one had done this, which is a very time consuming thing, trying to progress towards a solution this way. Now, in my opinion, in general, this is not as an efficient way of going about solving, simply because there are so many things to look at. So if you want to try and spot, whether there's a naked single in a particular row, or whether there's 3 numbers in 3 cells in a particular row, so sort of a triple, it's actually really hard to do that using this amount of information. And remember also that Mark and I come from, I suppose, a school of Sudoku thought, where what we're doing is we're trying to solve as quickly as we can. So we're trying to, we're trying to get these puzzles of this difficulty done in about 5 minutes or less. And it's very hard, if you are doing that, to start by populating the grid in this way. Now, the other way I think that it is semi-popular on the competitive Sudoku scene. I don't think it's as popular as the way that we use, but it is another method. It is used by some very good solvers. Is to solve and then write pencil marks in a particular cell, only if that cell can be one of 2 possibilities. So just going back to our example here, that would allow you to write this pencil mark into this cell. And are there any other? Yeah, there's a couple of other cells. This cell here, this would be a 1-7, this cell. This would be a 4-9, this would be a 4-7, and to try and make deductions on that basis. Now, that is a valid method, and it can lead you to some useful deductions from time to time. But I still don't think it's generally as useful as the method we recommend. So let's progress through the solve now and see what we can see. So the first thing that would be most obvious is that we can place a 1 in this cell because of this one, these 2 ones here. So let's put that in. That allows us to place a 1 here. Can remove this one. What else can we see quickly? Oh, this has got to be a 3. Let's put that in. That means we can write pencil marks into these 2 cells for 3s and these 2 cells for 3s. I'm just going to pause here and note something that will be very hard for the computer version to spot, and that's that we've now got this sort of X arrangement of 3s. So you can see the 3 in this 3x3 box can only go in column 7 or column 9, and the same is true of this 3x3 box. Now instantly, if I was solving this puzzle, I would be writing in pencil marks in those two positions for the 3s in this top 3x3 box. The reason being that I can see from this notation, if this is a 3, then this will be a 3. And if this is a 3, this will be a 3. But either way, there is no way that a 3 can go in this position, or this position, or this position in this 3x3 box. Because whatever the arrangement of 3s is, in this sort of X-swing shape, there's no way a 3 can go in either of these 3 positions. And then I can look just at column 8, I can see this 3 here, and that allows me to place pencil marks according to the rules that I've set myself. So let's just take a look at, so let's solve. So this was a 1, I've put that in, that was a 1. Now let's ask ourselves the question, if we were using this method of writing all of the possibilities into the grid, is it obvious to anybody just staring at this grid that in column 8, rows 1 and 2, i.e. these two cells here, those two cells, one of those two cells will contain a 3? Now, I don't think it's obvious at all. You know, you can see in this cell here there's a 2, 3, 6 combination that's possible, because when you have this amount of information, it is very, very hard to see this X-wing shape of 3s. So anyway, let's carry on and see how much further we get. So I'll be just trying to populate the grid with pencil marks now. I don't go about this in any particular order. I think some people, they do all the 1s and then they do all of the 2s, etc. The way I tend to do it is I'm just very much less structured. I'm sort of chopping and changing, just trying to spot something that might help. So I can see these two cells can be a 5. That's always quite a useful type deduction. Allows me to place more pencil marks down here. Okay. Similarly, we can place 2 9s in here because of this 9, and that allows us to actually place a 9 in this position here. So let's put that in. And that allows us to place this 9 here, and this 9 here, and that's going to give us a 3, and that's going to give us all sorts of things. So I'm just going to pause now and catch up with the detailed solution and see what that would be showing. I mean, indeed, I hope it's immediately obvious how difficult it is to see any of these types of things once you've got this amount of information in the grid. And I guess you could claim, looking at that central 3x3 box here, this one, you could claim it's possible to see that there are 2 9s in these positions here, and therefore, it's not unreasonable to scan across and see that this has to be a 9. But I just don't think it's as easy as it is when you're doing it like this. But let's fill that in. That would have to be a 9. That would give us that 9. Let's refresh the possibles so that it is eliminating down. And let's just compare and contrast. So the next number, obviously, I'm going to place in this grid is this 9 here, where the cursor is, and that's going to allow me immediately to place pencil marks 9s up here. It's going to allow me to place a 3 in this cell, a 3 in this cell, and a 5 in this cell. So I'm going to get a lot of numbers just from this 9 here. Let's go back here and see if we can, if we were using this type of notation, could we make those same deductions so quickly? So we could place the 9 here, definitely. Let's restrict the possibilities again. Now, is it, I mean, I guess you could spot that this is a naked 3, as in it's the only place in this 3 by 3 box that a 3 can appear. Yeah, I guess if you look at these two 3s, that's fair enough. So you place this 3. So this was a 3. I haven't put that 3 in, so we should definitely put that in. That will perhaps allow me to see. So having just placed this 3, would I spot this 3 up here? Probably would. Yeah, okay. Okay, and now, do I spot the 5? Maybe, yeah, maybe I do. I just this amount of information is so anathema to me. I'm questioning whether if I had this amount of information in the grid, I would always be looking, you know, at the perfect next number choice. So would I be instantly thinking, now the next number I'm going to look for is 5. I can only put a 5 here. You know, I can see how it's possible with this notation that one would do that, but it's far less natural than it is over here. It requires a bit of luck, I think, to sorry, this was a 9, this was a 3, this was a 3, and this was a 5, all of which just flows from what we've been doing thus far. And you can immediately see this 6 here is checking this position, which allows us to put pencil marks here and here. And looking at these two cells, this has to be a 6. That means we've got 6's in one of these two positions. Okay, and 9's in one of these two positions. Seven's here. I would probably be looking at this column because it's got so many numbers in it here. I can see this 5 here, so that's forcing a 5 into one of these two positions, which would allow me to place a 7 up here, like that. Let's go back to the other grid. Start populating some of the numbers that we... So one of the things we talked about was that this is a 6. And I guess, again, you can see it. It is possible. If you're studying the 6's, you would probably spot this can't be a 6. So if 6 is up here, that forces the 6 down into this position. It's quite hard now to see that the 6 in this box is restricted to one of these two positions, simply because there are just so many numbers in this grid. Maybe it's just that I'm not practiced in using this method, so as I'm staring at this grid now, it just horrifies me at the amount of information I'm having to process in order to try and spot what the next stages are. But, you know, again, this seems far more natural. The identification of this 2-5 pair here, you know, again, obviously one can see it if one stares at this grid long enough, but it's far from obvious. And the fact this is a naked 7, I guess maybe if you were crossing off the numbers as you go, it would just be a given, and that is what you'd find without having to do much thinking. But I'm not so sure. See where I might be looking now. So I think I've just placed this 7, haven't I? So I'd be looking, scanning across, and that would allow me to place this 7, this 7. And actually that gives me this number here. 7, 2, 5. I'd certainly be trying to look at this box as well, because I'm going to be able to place some pencil marks as a result of this 2-5 restriction. In fact, I can, yeah, I'm going to be able to place a 6 up here like this, which means that this is going to have to be 7, 8 in some order, like this, which means that this is a 2, 5. And annoyingly, with this notation, I can't write that down. But I'd certainly be studying this box now quickly just to see whether or not I can use the fact that this cell can only be a 2 or a 5. I don't think it's obvious how to do that just at this point. So I would place an 8 in these two positions. I place a 5 in these two positions. So I don't think that's unreasonable. That would allow me to place 2, 4 here and 2, 4 here. And that, I think, would be a very natural thing to do. 4, 4 in these two positions. 7 to these two positions. 3, 9. Let's go back to the other grid and make sure that we're not leaving it too far behind. So I was able to spot that this was a 7. Again, you can sort of do it from this grid. You have to. It's harder. It's just much more difficult to spot that. It just is much more difficult to spot that. Just trying to check that the grids are. And then, of course, we can see this. This is a 5 here because of this 5 and this 5. So we should just write that in. Just to place a 5 into one of these two positions. And then you can see we can write a pencil mark 9 up here, which means this has to be a 9. And that looks like it might be very helpful now, because now these two have to be 2 and 8 in some combination. And again, I'd contest that this is very helpful, because I can now see this sort of X pattern again with 2s. You can see we have a 2 in one of these two cells and a 2 in one of these two cells. That means, looking at this 3 by 3 box, I can write a 2 into one of these two positions. And that, in fact, cracks the puzzle, because now let's scan across. You can see in this 3 by 3 box, we don't know where the 2 goes, but it's absolutely clear it must be in either row 7 or row 8. Now, that being the case, this cannot be a 2, because if this was a 2, this would be a 2, and there would be nowhere to place a 2 in this 3 by 3 box. So, in fact, we can now place the 2 here like this, the 5 here. This will make that a 5. We can write that in, and now this is a 5. And I suspect that that will be the tipping point of the puzzle. So let's just, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's return to the other grid and ask ourselves whether all that would have been obvious. So I think from here, what we did was we placed a 5 here, and then we found that this had to be a 9. So let's eliminate the possibilities and check that I'm not doing the puzzle a disservice. I haven't written in any numbers that are unfair. I don't think I have. So these grids are now consistent, and I think it's pretty obvious that if you were trying to spot what I've just spotted there, which is that in this 3 by 3 box there has to be a 2 in either this position or this position, and that corresponds with the position of the 2 in this 3 by 3 box, which allows me to place a 2 down here. No way. It's just impossible. I'm just trying to be fair to this puzzle and ask myself the question, is it? It's just not. It's just very, very hard to see that. So all of which is a long way of saying that this method is definitely superior. It's definitely superior in terms of speed solving, because the sheer amount of information that you have to process in the full sort of notating method is just bonkers. Let's place a 4 here, so this has to be, what's this going to be, a 2 in one of these two positions. But really, I think it should be clear again also that this it's very, very close to being solved at this point. Place a 4 here, that allows me to 2 and a 9 into these two positions. It allows me to place a 9 up here. So yeah, I mean, apologies that this is a slightly longer form or a longer study on the Sudoku today, but I do think sometimes it's worth going through these things in more detail. You can see now that the 2 is forced up here. This can't be a 2. We need to place a 2 in column 7, so the only place it can go is here, which allows us immediately to unwind the 7s as well. 6 and 8 into these two positions in some order. 4s into these positions. Again, looking at column 3 now, we need to place a 5 in this column. We can't place it here because of this 5 here, so this is going to have to be a 5. Therefore that's going to have to be a 3, therefore this has to be a 4, I think. This has to be a 4. Yeah, and the puzzle's now solved, basically. 8 into one of these two positions, that means this has to be a 2, this has to be a 4. And there we go. So I hope it's, as I say, an interesting run through. And we'll do some more of these very difficult Sudokus over the next few weeks and talk more about technique. So thanks for watching, and see you again next time on Cracking the Cryptic.